sampling using a quadrat.
Hello boys and girls, and welcome back to Windlesham. We're going to look today at sampling.
How many daisies do you think are in the Italian gardens?
How many daisies do you think are in this area of the Italian gardens? Gosh, there's way too many to count. That would take far too long.
How would you work it out?
It's a big area. There are some areas with daisies, like here, some areas without daisies. How could we make some sort of estimate as to how many we think there are in this area? Well, the key to this is something called the quadrat.
You can estimate sample size using a quadrat.
A quadrat is a square. It can be the size of a metre square. You'll notice this actually is only half a metre square. You can then place the quadrat and count how many daisies are in it. Now, the placing of the quadrat must be without your personal choice.
Bias is when you favour one thing over another. If you choose where to place your quadrat, you will probably introduce bias because you will favour placing it somewhere where there are daisies rather than somewhere where there aren't.
So when I place my quadrat down on the ground, if for example I had placed it here, there are no daisies in there at all. And actually that feels quite sort of disappointing. And so I am not naturally going to place my quadrat where there are no daisies. Now, if I placed it over here, where there are loads of daisies, well, that's not representative of the whole field.
Bias sampling will produce an incorrect result because we will keep choosing areas where there are loads of daisies, so our estimate for the Italian gardens will be far too high for the number of daisies that are actually there.
I need to do what's called random sampling. That means that I don't choose where I place the quadrat, the choice is made for me.
In random sampling, you have no choice where you place the quadrat. You place the quadrat based on a position that has been randomly chosen for you.
Now, random sampling is often done with a tape measure. So you would have a tape measure down one side and a tape measure along the other side. And somebody might say, I'd like you to go to point 2 on the tape measure this side and then walk until you are in line with point 5 on the tape measure from that side. So that would take me, say for example, to about here, and then I would place the quadrat here. That would be entirely random. You could even generate those two numbers on the tape measure, for example, using a dice or a random number generator. Another way of throwing the quadrat randomly is simply to be guided by your partner. You shut your eyes and your partner says to you, walk 5 paces forwards.
Turn right by 90 degrees. Walk 3 paces forwards. Turn left by 180 degrees. Walk 2 paces forwards. Place your quadrat.
And there's another example of random sampling. It's not really as random as the other method with the tape measures because your partner can actually see where you're going unless you both had your eyes shut. But the point is that the person placing the quadrat does not get to choose where they place it. So once the quadrat has been placed on the ground, then you need to count how many daisies are inside.
Count the number of daisies in one quadrat. This gives you the number of daisies in 1 metre squared.
3, some 4, some 5. Well, I hope I got that right. Approximately 75 in this particular metre square here. So in my results table, at place number 1, I would write 75 daisies.
This is where we're going to record our results. Here is the quadrat number in our first quadrat, and this is the number of plants that we found. So we found in our first quadrat 75.
Now we've just found out how many daisies are in one quadrat. We've taken one sample, but in order to make it more reliable, we need to repeat. So I suggest we repeat this 10 times. So we're going to place the quadrat randomly across the whole area of the Italian gardens 10 times.
One quadrat is just not a representative sample of the whole field. We need to take several samples and then take an average number of daisies for one quadrat. This will make our sample much more reliable. So we're going to repeat to obtain 10 quadrat samples and take an average.
Now, once you have placed the quadrat 10 times, you then need to add up the total number of daisies you found in 10 quadrats. And then you divide it by 10. And this will give you an average for one quadrat for the whole area.
So we got a total number in all 10 quadrats. The total number of daisies was 230. So if we want to find out the average per one quadrat, we must do the total divided by the number of times we did a sample. So the total was 230 and we did 10 quadrats, so 230 divided by 10 will give you 23. So 23 is the average number of daisies per quadrat.
Now that will give you one quadrat, which we are saying is worth 1 metre squared. So the question is, how many metres squared are in the area that we are looking at? So we know how many daisies on average are in 1 metre squared in this field in the Italian garden. But how many metres squared are actually in the Italian gardens? Now the way you measure this is with one of these. This is a trundle wheel. Now the trundle wheel, I don't know if you can hear, it clicks when it moves a metre. So you use the trundle wheel to measure the length and the width of the area that you are investigating. So having measured the length of the Italian gardens here, that came to 30 metres, and then the width across there came to 20 metres. So the total area of the Italian gardens is length times width in metres squared. So that's 20 times 30 is 600. So this whole Italian garden here area is 600 metres squared. The average number of daisies for 1 metre squared in the Italian gardens was 23. So 23 on average are in 1 metre squared, and the total number of metres squared we found to be 600. So if we want to find the total number of daisies in the whole field, we need to times the total area, 600, by the number of daisies in 1 metre squared. So that would be 600 times 23. Where's Mr. Franklin when you need him?
So we reckon that there are on average 23 per metre squared per quadrat. So if there are 23 in one quadrat, and we then find out how many quadrats in total are there in the whole of the Italian gardens, then we can try and work out how many daisies are there in total in the whole Italian gardens. So we worked out the length, which was 30 metres, and the width was 20, giving us a total area of 600 metres squared. 600 metres squared. So if there are 23 in 1 metre squared and we have 600 metres squared in the whole area, then we need to multiply 23 by 600. 23 times 600 gives us, wow, look at that, 13,800 daisies is our estimate of how many daisies there are in the Italian gardens. 13,800. Gosh, it would have taken you a long time to count. Good job, we know how to sample. This is only an estimate. It's not exact, and we take every effort though to make it as accurate and reliable as we can by repeating our measurements and taking an average.